The docking clamps of the HIS Vanguard thudded against the Authority border station's hull with a finality that set Leah Ruiz's teeth on edge. She stood on the frigate's bridge, arms crossed, watching the viewport as the massive angular structure of Station Epsilon 7 loomed into view. Its spires gleamed under the harsh lights of the border system's primary, a bloated red star that painted everything in bloodied hues. The summons had come encrypted, laced with that familiar Authority arrogance, demanding the Vanguard's presence to answer for unauthorized human expansion in the fringe sectors. Leah's jaw tightened. Expansion? They meant survival. Her colonies were scraping by on asteroid mines and hydroponic scraps, not some imperial land grab. "Captain," her comms officer said, voice steady but low, "docking complete. Authority shuttles inbound. They're requesting you and a small escort for the tribunal." Leah nodded, her eyes never leaving the station. It was a fortress of cold efficiency, layered energy shields, automated turrets that could vaporize a ship in seconds, and enough personnel to crew a small fleet, all under the thumb of the Galactic Authority, the self-proclaimed eternal guardians of the galaxy, eternal until they weren't. She smoothed her uniform, the black and silver of human naval command feeling like a target painted on her back. "Mara, you're with me. Elias, you have the bridge. Keep sensors hot." Her brother glanced up from the navigation console, his face pale under the bridge lights. Elias was sharp, too sharp for his own good sometimes, but the weight of her shadow hung heavy on him. "Aye, Captain. We'll be ready." The shuttle ride to the station's core was silent, the air thick with recycled ozone. Leah sat rigid, flanked by Sergeant Mara Ivers, whose marine fatigue strained against her broad shoulders. Mara's eyes, hard as flint from years in the orbital slums, scanned every shadow in the cramped cabin. The Authority escort, two insectoid enforcers with chitinous armor and multi-jointed limbs, ignored them, their mandibles clicking in some private comms chatter. The tribunal chamber was a cavern of polished obsidian, lit by floating holographic displays that projected the Authority's sigil, a coiled serpent encircling a star. At its center stood Arbiter HFY War, towering over the assembly on his saurian legs. His gray-plated hide gleamed under the lights, scales etched with the ritual scars of his rank. Flanking him were lesser officials, avian scribes fluttering datapads, a hulking ursine enforcer whose breath rumbled like distant thunder. Leah stepped forward, Mara at her side, the human delegation dwarfed by the chamber's scale. "Commander Ruiz?" Salak intoned, his voice a resonant hiss through the translator implant in Leah's ear, his slit-pupiled eyes fixed on her, unblinking. "You answer for humanity's transgressions. Reports from the fringe indicate unauthorized mining operations, settlement encroachments. The Authority demands compliance with the revised quotas, 20% of your output in trade goods and auxiliary troops for our stabilization campaigns." Leah met his gaze, her pulse steady despite the condescension dripping from every word. She'd heard it before, the Authority's way of reminding lesser species who held the leash. Earth had paid dearly for defying those quotas once, sanctions that starved billions before humanity clawed back a sliver of independence. "Arbiter Vor, those encroachments are life support for our colonies. The quotas you propose would gut us. We're not your vassals anymore." Salak's tail flicked, a subtle sign of irritation. The holographic displays flickered, pulling up maps of human space dotted with red warning markers. "Vassals? No, Commander. Allies. Refusal invites sanctions, blockades, perhaps a reminder of the Authority's corrective measures." His words hung like a blade, the ursine enforcer shifting forward with a low growl. Mara tensed beside Leah, her hand inching toward the concealed sidearm under her jacket. Leah forced a thin smile, her mind racing through contingencies. The Vanguard could break dock in minutes, but running now would paint a target on every human ship in the sector. Humanity values our alliance, Arbiter, but these demands, they're a step too far. Let's discuss terms. The tribunal dragged on, Salek's voice a relentless drone of legal citations and veiled threats. Leah endured it, her responses clipped, buying time. By the time they were dismissed, pending further review, her frustration simmered into a cold resolve. As they boarded the shuttle back, Mara muttered under her breath, "That lizard thinks he can squeeze us dry. One word, Captain, and my team turns this station into scrap." "Not yet," Leah replied, her voice low. "We play smart." Back aboard the Vanguard, Leah retreated to her ready room, the door hissing shut behind her. The space was sparse, a desk cluttered with tactical hollows, a single porthole framing the station's silhouette. She poured a measure of synth whiskey, the burn grounding her as Dr. Aaron Cade slipped in, his scholarly robes ill-fitting over his lean frame. "Captain," Arun said, activating a secure datapad. His eyes, sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, held a quiet urgency. The tribunal was a distraction. Look at this. The pad projected streams of intercepted authority traffic. Logistics manifests fracturing, command signals glitching across sectors. Their supply chains are unraveling. Core worlds reporting phantom failures, reactors spiking, defenses misfiring. It's not sabotage, it's systemic, like the Empire's own infrastructure is turning on itself. Leah leaned forward, tracing a finger over the flickering map. Arun's predictions had saved her skin before, pulling patterns from the chaos that others missed. But his pacifist streak made him hesitate, always weighing the human cost. How bad? Worse than bad. Coherence is dropping fast. If this cascades... He trailed off, rubbing his temple. The authorities built on layers of automated control. One weak link and it all unravels. We're seeing it now, at the borders. She nodded, the pieces slotting into place. The summons, the quotas. It was desperation masked as dominance. Humanity's fringe pushes were a symptom, not the cause. Can we exploit it? Arun's face tightened, his moral qualms flickering. We could. Asymmetric strikes on key nodes, but it risks accelerating the fall. Billions could die in the vacuum. Before Leah could respond, the ship lurched. Alarms blared, red lights strobing across the bulkheads. What the hell? She bolted for the bridge, Aaron on her heels. The viewport showed chaos, Station Epsilon 7's lights guttering like a dying fire. Energy shields collapsed in ripples, turrets swiveling wildly before unleashing fire into the station's own hull. Explosions bloomed along the docking arms, debris spiraling into the void. In orbit, authority cruisers twisted, their hulls buckling as internal reactors detonated in chain reactions. The eternal empire was bleeding out. "Captain!" Elias called from navigation, his voice cracking with shock. He stared at the sensor feed, hands frozen on the controls. One cruiser, a behemoth twice the Vanguard's size, vented atmosphere in a silent scream. Its bays opening to spill fighters that immediately shredded each other in fratricidal bursts. They're tearing themselves apart. It took minutes. The authority, it's gone. Leah gripped the command rail, her mind snapping into tactical focus. Damage report. Station's core systems failing, her engineer barked. Power grids inverting. Defenses are targeting anything with authority transponders. Our docking clamps are locked. We can't undock without overrides. Marines to the umbilical, Leah ordered. Sergeant Ivers, secure our people on the station. Get them back now. Mara's voice crackled over comms from the Marine deck. On it, Captain. Squads geared. Moving out. The corridor to the station was a nightmare of flickering emergency lights and acrid smoke. Mara led her team, 6 Marines in sealed vac suits. Rifles hot, through the umbilical tube, boots magnetized to the deck. Authority security swarmed the far end, but not in formation. Clad in powered exos, the enforcers turned on each other, a ursine brute slamming an avian into the bulkhead, mandibled guards firing wildly as their HUDs glitched commands to eliminate threats. Screams echoed in alien tongues cut short by plasma bursts. Hostiles ahead, Mara growled, sighting her rifle. Flank left, cover the civvies. Her squad fanned out, precise and brutal. Human embassy staff, diplomats and aides frozen in panic, huddled behind crates. Mara grabbed the nearest, a wide-eyed analyst. "Move! To the shuttle!" An authority drone buzzed from a vent, its stingers deploying. Mara didn't hesitate. A burst from her rifle vaporized it mid-air. But as they pushed forward, a Saurian guard lunged from the shadows, claws raking a Marine's arm. The man grunted, returning fire, but the corridor devolved into a melee. Blades flashing, suits sparking. Mara drove her boot into the guard. Mara's boot connected with the Saurian's jaw, the impact reverberating up her leg like a hammer strike. The guard staggered, gray scales cracking under the force, but he twisted mid-fall, his tail whipping out to snag her ankle. She cursed, yanking free as plasma rounds scorched the bulkhead behind her. Her Marines were a blur of motion, Peterson firing from a knee, his wounded arm leaking red through the suit seal. Reyes closing in with a vibro knife, slashing at another shadow dweller scrambling for cover. "Flank left," Mara barked, her voice cutting through the calm static. She pumped around into the guard's chest, watching his eyes glaze over in the helmet feed. The corridor fell quiet, save for the hiss of venting atmosphere and a Marine's ragged breathing. Bodies slumped against the walls, authority insignias smeared with ichor and blood. They were in the cruiser's auxiliary bay now, salvage crates cracked open like eggshells, exposing power cells and data cores that could keep the Vanguard running for weeks. Peterson slumped against a console, clamping his arm. "Clear, Sarge, but these bastards were waiting." Mara nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. Her gaze snagged on a figure emerging from a side hatch, hands raised, an older Saurian in faded officer's robes, his crest drooping in defeat. "I yield," he rasped in broken galactic standard, the words tinny through the translator. "No more fight." She advanced, rifle trained, her Marines fanning out. The officer's robes parted slightly, revealing an embroidered emblem on his chest. A coiled serpent, the mark of the old authority enforcers who'd torched her slum during the uprising, the ones who'd gunned down her sister in the crowd. Rage coiled in her gut, hot and familiar. "Check him," she ordered, but her finger tightened on the trigger. The Saurian's eyes widened, pleading. One shot, clean. He crumpled, without a sound. Reyes stared. "Sarge." He surrendered. Mara holstered her weapon, jaw set. Emblem like that doesn't surrender. It conquers. Secure the salvage. We're done here. Back on the Vanguard's bridge, Leah Ruiz gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the engines vibrating through the deck. The view screen flickered with the Admiralty's recall signal, a looping hologram of stern faces demanding the immediate handover of Envoy Tsalak Vor. "This is Admiral Harlan. The Arbiter is Authority property. Comply or face charges of treason. Regroup at Epsilon Station. That is an order." Leah's lips thinned. Tsalak stood beside her, his plated frame rigid, claws tapping softly against his thigh. The Saurian had come aboard hours ago, a ghost from the crumbling empire begging sanctuary in exchange for secrets. Hand him over? To what? Human brass eager to parade him as a trophy, or worse, dissect his knowledge for their own power grab? No. Humanity's edge was in the shadows now, not in bowing to recall signals. "Helm, plot evasive course," she said, her voice steady as steel. "Full burn out of system. Comms, jam that signal and go dark." Lieutenant Elias Ruiz, her brother, glanced up from navigation, his youthful face paling. "Captain, that's direct defiance. They'll brand us rogue." "They already have," Leah replied, meeting his eyes. The scar on her cheek pulled tight, a reminder of the authority's sanctions that had glassed half of Earth's orbitals. "We run with what we have. Tsalak stays." The bridge crew moved like a well-oiled machine, fingers flying over consoles. Alarms blared briefly as the Vanguard's drives ignited, slingshotting away from the derelict cruiser. Mara and her team would shuttle back any second, salvage in tow. Leah watched the scanner, heart pounding in the quiet tension. Defiance wasn't glory, it was survival, bought with isolation. In the briefing room adjacent to the bridge, Tsalak paced the confines of the human-sized space, his tail occasionally brushing the bulkhead. Leah entered, sealing the door behind her. Aaron Cade was already there, The exo-historian hunched over a holopad, his glasses reflecting streams of data. Elias lingered in the doorway, arms crossed. The recall was inevitable, Salek said, his voice a low rumble. But you must understand, the authorities' fall is no accident. The Ash Protocol, it was our failsafe buried in the Empire's core networks, a contingency to purge corruption from within, turning infrastructure against threats, power grids, fleets, even planetary shields, self-consuming weapons designed to isolate and eradicate. Leah leaned against the table, folding her arms. And now? Hijacked, Salek continued, his golden eyes flickering with something like fear. Someone has twisted it. Core worlds are unraveling, ships turning on their own. Stations imploding into black holes of code. It's not decay. It's directed annihilation. The architect knows our every vulnerability. Arun looked up, his fingers pausing. I've seen echoes in the archives, fragmented logs from the outer rims, but hijacked how? The protocol was locked behind arbiter oaths. Salek's crest flattened. Oaths break when civilizations do. I was meant to enforce it, but now I am the evidence they wish erased. Leah nodded slowly, the weight settling in her chest. If this was true, the chaos wasn't random. It was a scalpel, carving out the old order to make way for something worse. Her crew's lives, the colonies, they hung on intel like this. Arun excused himself to the analysis bay, pulling up the salvaged archives from the cruiser. Leah watched him go, then turned to Salek. You get us proof, or you're no better than the signal we just ignored. Hours later, Arun burst onto the bridge, holopad clutched like a lifeline. Captain, Salek's right, and it's worse. Cross-referenced the testimony with the fragments. Patterns match. Targeted failures in authority command nodes, but skipping human fringe assets. It's deliberate, an inside job. Someone with protocol access rewriting the code on the fly, not collapse, culling. Leah's mind raced, piecing the implications. Human ingenuity against odds. This was ingenuity turned predator. Who? Can't say yet, Arun admitted, pushing his glasses up. But it's surgical. They're testing survivors, forcing choices. Elias shifted uneasily at his station. Testing for what? Like we're lab rats? Before Arun could answer, a shout from the marine deck echoed over comms. Leah patched in. The feed showing the shuttle bay. Mara striding in, crates thumping down, her face smeared with grime. Elias was already moving, his station handed off to a petty officer. Sis, Captain, he said, voice tight as he reached her. We need to talk about what happened on the cruiser. Leah raised an eyebrow, but the urgency in his eyes pulled her aside. In the corridor, he faced her, fists clenched. Mara executed a prisoner, surrendered officer. One of her team saw the whole thing, said it was personal, some old grudge. Leah's stomach twisted. Mara was fire, the kind that forged or burned. Details? Reyes reported it. The Saurian had an emblem from the slums crackdown. Mara didn't hesitate. Now the vets are backing her. No quarter for those bastards. But the younger ones, they're whispering about war crimes. If we slide like this, what are we better than the authority? She placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the tremor there. Elias, always the idealist, her anchor and her ache. We're surviving, Elias, but I hear you. I'll address it. He searched her face, doubt flickering. Will you? Or is this the cost we pay to not kneel? The words stung, echoing her own buried fears. Division in the ranks, revenge versus restraint, could fracture them before the real fight hit. Leah pulled away, jaw set. Get back to Nav. We handle this together. The alert chime cut the tension. Incoming transmission, unencrypted and raw. Leah returned to the bridge as the distress call filled the speakers, a human voice, frantic from the fringe colony of New Harlan. Vanguard, anyone, authority protection fleets gone mad. They're firing on us, ships twisting like they're alive. Ash something. It's eating everything. Coordinates attached. Please. Salek's eyes widened. The protocol, rogue elements activating. Arun nodded grimly. Fringe colony, human mostly, but under authority oversight. If it's hit there. Leah stared at the star map. The recall signal's path to Epsilon Station glowing red. Regroup, play safe, hand over Tsalek, or dive into the fire. Her crew's eyes on her, veterans scarred by sanctions, kids like Elias clinging to hope. Branded traitor? Fine. Extinction wasn't an option. Helm, divert to New Harlan coordinates, she ordered. Max speed, arm weapons. We're not regrouping, we're answering. Murmurs rippled through the bridge, a mix of resolve and unease. Elias met her gaze, a nod of conflicted trust. Mara, patching in from below. The Vanguard shuddered as it pierced the outer veil of the debris field, hull groaning under the strain of micro-impacts like 1,000 distant drumbeats. Leah Ruiz gripped the armrests of her command chair, eyes locked on the main holoscreen where the wreckage sprawled like the skeleton of some colossal beast. Twisted hulks of authority cruisers drifted in lazy orbits, their solar sails unfurled not for power, but to eclipse the weak starlight feeding the colony world below. Epsilon 7, a dusty rock of human outposts and fragile hydrofarms, lay in shadow, its grids flickering on emergency reserves. Status nav? Leah's voice cut through the bridge hum, steady despite the knot in her gut. This wasn't random fallout from the authorities' collapse. It was deliberate. Someone had choreographed this graveyard to choke the life out of the planet. Elias Ruiz, her brother, hunched over his console, fingers dancing across the interface. We're in, Commander. Debris density spiking at 27 Mark IV. Those sails. They're aligned to block 90% of insulation. Colony's been dark for weeks. Power draws critical. Shields failing on the main habdomes. Leah's jaw tightened. Weeks. Enough time for ration riots, failing life support, the slow rot of hope. She'd seen it before on Earth's fringes when authority blockades turned colonies into tombs. Not again, not on her watch. Helm, evasive pattern delta, keep us clear of the hot zones. Arun, what are we looking at tactically? Dr. Arun Cade leaned into the glow of his analyst station, his face a mask of focused strain. The pacifist scholar buried under layers of wartime necessity. The positioning's no accident, Captain. Those derelicts are chained, maglocks and tethers forming a blockade net. Cut the power to the sails, and the whole thing collapses inward. But the colony's too close. Fallout could irradiate their atmo. Murmurs rippled through the bridge, a mix of resolve and unease. Elias met her gaze, a nod of conflicted trust. Mara, patching in from below, her voice crackling over the comms. Marines geared for boarding, Commander. Say the word, and we'll crack those husks open. Leah nodded, the weight of command settling heavier. Hold for now, scan for signals, anything active in this mess. Arun's screens flickered, algorithms chewing through the static. Minutes stretched, the Vanguard weaving through jagged spires of alloy and frozen vapor. Then Arun straightened, his voice low, edged with something like dread. Got a repeater, encrypted, bouncing between the derelicts. It's structured, not random noise. Decode it, Leah ordered, leaning forward. The bridge fell quiet, all eyes on Arun's display, as lines of alien script unraveled into readable bursts. He swallowed, reading aloud in a voice stripped bare. The old order clings to entropy. I offer renewal through fire. The Ash Protocol will purge the unworthy, forging a galaxy of the resilient. Humanity, prove your mettle or join the dust. Signed, Director Cal Tharon. The name hit like a hull breach. Cal Tharon, presumed dead in the initial cascade, the architect of the authorities' unraveling. Leah's mind raced. A manifesto? From a ghost? He's alive, broadcasting from these wrecks? Aaron nodded grimly. The signal's embedded in the derelict's old comm arrays. He's using the blockade as a transmitter. This isn't just sabotage, it's a test. Tsalek Vor shifted in the shadows of the observation alcove, his saurian scales rasping faintly against his robes. The former arbiter had been silent since they entered the field, his elongated muzzle downturned. Now his golden eyes met Leah's, heavy with the weight of old secrets. Cal. He spoke of the Ash Protocol years ago, in closed sessions, a reset for unruly sectors, cascading failures in infrastructure, designed to break societies without full invasion. We overruled him, too indiscriminate, but we buried the proposal, feared it would fracture the authority further. Leah's stare bored into him. You knew, and did nothing. The accusation hung, sharp as a vibroblade. Salak's complicity wasn't new, but hearing it laid bare twisted the knife. He'd been their ally against the collapse, trading secrets for sanctuary aboard the Vanguard. Now, this. I enforced the law, Salak rumbled, voice like grinding stone. Not the shadows beneath it. Cal was fringe then, mad. We thought him contained. His claws flexed, a rare tell of agitation. This blockade, it's his design, starving the colony to force a choice. Surrender to chaos or burn clean. Leah's fists clenched. Mad or not, Cal was pulling strings from the grave, or wherever he hid. Mara, we need that reactor node on the central derelict. It's powering the sails. Take your squad, secure it, quiet and fast. Affirmative, Mara's response crackled. All business. Lock and load. The boarding shuttle detached with a muffled thud, vanishing into the debris haze. Leah watched the feed from Mara's helmet cam, the squad's mag boots clanging onto the derelict's hull. The Authority cruiser was a gutted behemoth, corridors lit by emergency strobes, air thick with dust, and the metallic tang of decay. Mara's voice guided them. Breach at 3 o'clock. Reyes, cover left. Jackson, on me. They sliced through a sealed hatch, plasma torches hissing, and piled into the engineering bay. The reactor node hummed faintly, a bulbous core of conduits and shielding, key to the blockade's power web. Node secure, Mara reported, her Marines rigging charges to siphon energy. Pulling schematics now. Alarms blared suddenly, red lights pulsing from vents and shadowed alcoves. Dormant defense drones whirred to life, spider-like sentinels with glowing optic clusters and needle-tipped limbs. Cal's remote control awakening like vengeful ghosts. Contact! Reyes shouted, his rifle barking. A drone skittered across the bulkhead, its stinger lancing out. He dodged, but it clipped his arm, sparks flying from his suit. Mara pivoted, shotgun roaring, shredding the thing in a spray of circuitry. Flank them, she barked, but the drones swarmed, 5, 10, coordinated in eerie silence. Jackson took a hit to the leg, crumpling with a scream as hydraulics failed. Cover him, Leah watched in helpless fury, the feed shaking as Mara fought. Reyes dragged Jackson back, but another drone latched onto his helmet, piercing the visor. Blood misted the cam before it cut to static. 2 down. Mara's squad retreated, dragging the wounded, the node half-rigged but intact. Abort, Leah growled into the comm. Get back to the shuttle, now. Mara's breath came ragged. Lost Reyes and Jackson, Commander. Bastards woke the whole nest. The shuttle docked amid curses and medbay klaxons. Leah met Mara's eyes in the airlock, the sergeant's face smeared with sweat and grime, her squad diminished. We got partial access, Mara said, voice hollow. Enough to map the power flow, but those drones... Cal's still pulling triggers. Leah nodded, the loss settling like lead. Reyes and Jackson, good Marines, families back on the colonies. Earned defiance, yes, but at what cost? Rest your team. We'll use what you've got. Back on the bridge, alarms wailed anew. Elias's console lit up, his face paling. Commander, colony shield grids collapsing. Particle storm inbound. If it hits without barriers. Leah's orders were clear. Prioritize the Vanguard's integrity. Shields to full evasive maneuvers. But Elias hesitated, fingers hovering. The colony's pleas flooded the comms. Desperate hails from habdomes cracking under strain. Sis, Commander, he said, voice cracking the formality. We can divert auxiliary power. Shore up their grid for the storm. It's a 5-minute window. Negative, Leah snapped, heart twisting. Elias, always the idealist, seeing the human cost where tactics demanded steel. Standing orders, protect the ship first. We're no good to anyone as wreckage. He met her eyes, that conflicted trust fracturing. They're dying down there. Because of this blockade. We can save them. The bridge tensed. Arun glancing over, Salak silent. Leah's mind raced. Divert. And the Vanguard's hull could buckle under debris. but ignore, and the colony's remnants vaporized. Elias didn't wait for rebuttal. His hands moved, rerouting power in a defiant surge. Elias! Leah lunged forward, but the deed was done. The ship's alarm spiked, shields thinning as energy flowed outward. The colony's grid stabilized on the feed, domes holding as the storm lashed harmlessly aside. "You disobeyed," she said quietly, the words tasting like ash. Elias looked away, shoulders set. Brother or officer? The line blurred, his choice a crack in their bond. No time, Leah Ruiz stood on the Vanguard's bridge, the hum of the ship's systems a low thrum against her temples. The viewscreen framed the liberated colony below. New Epsilon, a cluster of domed habitats and orbital docks scarred by recent fighting, now orbiting in uneasy silence. Her task force hung in formation around it, corvettes and frigates like watchful hounds. The air recyclers whispered cool air, but it did nothing to ease the knot in her gut. Orders from human high command had come in encrypted bursts during the jump back from the skirmish zone, each one heavier than the last. "Captain Ruiz," the comms officer said, voice clipped. "Priority transmission from high command, eyes only." Leah nodded, sliding into her command chair. The message unfolded in holographic text, stark and unyielding. "Secure New Epsilon as a forward operating base. Integrate local assets under human oversight. Establish defensive perimeters and claim territorial sovereignty. This is our foothold in the vacuum. Hold it at all costs. No negotiations with remnant factions." She read it twice, the words sinking like ballast, claiming ex-authority territory outright. It wasn't just defense, it was expansion, a stake in the collapsing empire's corpse. Humanity's colonies had clawed for scraps under the authorities' boot for generations. Sanctions that starved Earth. Patrols that bombed orbital slums. Now, with the galactic behemoth crumbling under whatever the hell the Ash Protocol was, High Command saw opportunity. Leah's fingers tightened on the armrest. Her crew deserved this edge, the colonies a buffer against extinction, but the echo of old enforcers lingered in her mind, their ships blotting out stars as they imposed order. "Relay to the task force," she said finally. "We're locking down the colony, full sensor sweeps, marine deployments to key sites. No one in or out without clearance." The bridge stirred with quiet efficiency, officers tapping consoles, the soft ping of acknowledgments. Leah's gaze drifted to the auxiliary station where her brother Elias sat, his young face etched with the fatigue of the last op. He met her eyes briefly, then looked away. She pushed down the familiar ache. He'd joined her crew through her pull, fresh from academy simulations. Brilliant with nav charts, but green in the blood and fire reality. She needed him focused, not questioning every shadow. An hour later, in the dim glow of the strategy room, Dr. Aaron Cade waited. The exo-historian turned analyst, hunched over a holotable, his wiry frame swallowed by the oversized naval jumpsuit. Projections flickered above, cascading failure models of authority infrastructure, red lines spiderwebbing through sectors like veins of poison. "Commander," Arun said without looking up, his voice steady but laced with that scholar's precision. "The models are clear. If we flood this vacuum too fast, bases like New Epsilon, patrols pushing into dead zones, the ash remnants will adapt. It's not random decay, it's a protocol designed to purge overreach. The authority triggered it by tightening control on fringe worlds. We do the same, and those automated systems turn on us. Subspace relays could lock us out of our own jumps, or worse, seed our networks with fail-safes." Leah crossed her arms, staring at the Sims. Arun's pacifist streak made him hesitate before every tactic, but his mind dissected empires like cadavers. She'd pulled him from some dusty archive after his predictions nailed the authorities' first cracks. Now his fear gnawed at her, every gain a potential noose. "And if we hold back?" she asked. "Let the chaos sort itself?" Arun's eyes met hers, dark and unblinking. Then someone else fills it, remnants, pirates, or worse, but rushing in. It's like handing Kal Tharin the keys to our destruction. He built this, Leah. His protocol waits for empires to overextend. The name hung heavy. Cal Theron, the ghost who'd faked his death and unleashed the ash. Arun's obsession, pieced from fragmented authority logs. Leah nodded, filing it away. No time for doubts now. Envoy HFY War arrived next, his saurian bulk filling the hatchway. The former arbiter moved with deliberate grace, gray scales catching the light like weathered stone, his compound eyes fixed on her, calm but fractured, the terror of a civilization's unraveling hidden behind legal poise. He'd defected to her side after the last battle, trading secrets for sanctuary. Leah still didn't trust him fully. Hierarchies like his had crushed worlds. "Commander Ruiz," HFY rumbled, voice a low vibration. "I must speak of the Nexus." She gestured to the holotable. Arun stepped back, watchful. "The Ash Protocol has a heart," HFY continued, mandibles clicking softly. "Not scattered code, but a central node, hidden in Judica Prime, an old authority world for trials and purges, sealed vaults, automated defenses. Cal Theron is there, I am certain, consolidating. If he links the remnants, he controls the collapse. We struck the authority blind. He will not be." Leah's pulse quickened. Judica Prime, neutral ground turned tomb. Light years coreward. A strike there meant leaving New Epsilon exposed, defying orders, but waiting. Cal fortifying, turning the galaxy's ruins into his forge. "Why confess now?" she pressed. HFY's calm masked secrets. She needed the truth raw. His tail flicked, a rare tell. "Because your high command's claim mirrors the authority's hubris. I enforced that law once, saw worlds burn for it. Cal exploits such moves. If humanity becomes the new enforcers, he wins without firing a shot." She held his gaze, the weight of alliance pressing. HFY needed her protection, but his warnings carried the scent of self-preservation. Still, the Nexus changed everything. A target, not just shadows. Down on the colony's main habitat ring, Sergeant Mara Ivers led her Marines through the dim corridors. The air stank of recycled ozone and unwashed fear. Locals huddled in doorways as patrols swept for hidden arms. New Epsilon's survivors, humans, a few alien traders, eyed the armored figures with the same wariness Mara had felt as a girl in the slums. Authority peacekeepers then, imposing curfews after her sister's protest turned to riots. Bullets and gas, bodies in the vents. "Clear the block," Mara barked into her comm, her squad fanning out. A scuffle erupted ahead, a local male, scaled like HFY but smaller, clutching a plasma cutter like a weapon. Her Marine pinned him, rifle humming. "Curfews for safety," Mara said, voice hard. "Weapons in, weapons out, no exceptions." The man snarled in broken Galstand. "You humans, same as them, locking us down." Mara's jaw tightened. She remembered the sweeps. Her sister's blood on the deck plate. But unrest here could ignite, remnants slipping in to bomb the docks. She nodded to her squad. Confiscate, cuff, move on. It felt like occupation, the boot on necks she'd sworn to shatter. Her Marines trusted her, family forged in fire. Escalating kept them alive, even if it echoed the ghosts. Leah's shuttle touched down amid the patrols, the colony's gravity a faint pull. She strode through the ring, Marines snapping salutes. Reports flooded her datapad, minor clashes, a cache of authority-grade munitions uncovered, but whispers of resistance too, civilians bypassing checkpoints. Elias met her at the central atrium, his uniform crisp, but eyes shadowed. "Sis, Commander, we need to talk, privately." She followed him to a side alcove, away from the hum of enforcers. He glanced around, then pulled up a hidden channel on his wrist unit. Faint voices crackled, locals, organizing in shadows. "I've set up a civilian council," Elias said, voice low. "Off the grid. They're scared, Leah. Your orders, high commands. It's martial law. Curfews, sweeps. It's turning us into what we fought." Leah's temper flared, but she kept it leashed. Elias, always the idealist, believing humanity could rise clean. "Chaos kills, Elias. Without control, Cal's agents slip in, or worse, the locals fracture and invite them." He shook his head, frustration cracking his composure. Fear of chaos is driving us, toward authoritarianism. I saw it in The Sims at Academy. One wrong step, and we're the Authority 2.0. The Council wants input, not orders. Undermine that, and you lose the people you're saving. His words hit like a gut punch. Her brother, loyal but pulling away, forcing her to see the mirror. She'd gotten him this post to protect him, but now he challenged her core. The colony's independence, her life's blood, hung on holding ground, yet Elias's doubt mirrored her own buried fear. Becoming the tyrant. Back aboard the Vanguard, Leah paced the strategy room. The holotable glowed with options: fortify per orders, entrench New Epsilon as the spearhead, or divert, strike Ajudica Prime, hit the Nexus before Cal dug in. High Command would court-martial her for rogue action, but waiting meant ceding the initiative. Leah's gaze locked on Arun as he leaned over the holotable, his fingers tracing the flickering projection of Ajudica Prime. The exo-historian's face was gaunt under the dim lights, shadows carving deeper lines into his brow. Arun's analysis is clear, he said, voice steady but edged with the weariness of too many late nights decoding Authority relics. The Nexus is there, buried in the Tribunal's core. If we hit it now, before Cal consolidates— She cut him off with a sharp nod, the decision crystallizing in her gut like shrapnel. High Command's orders be damned. They'd sold out humanity's soul for a seat at the ruins. Plot the jump. We're going in rogue. The bridge crew stirred, murmurs rippling like aftershocks, but no one argued. Elias shot her a look from the nav console, worry mixed with that stubborn idealism she both envied and resented. Her brother, always the one to question the blood price. The Vanguard shuddered through the slipstream, engines groaning as they dropped into real space on the edge of the Ajudica system. Leah stood at the viewport, the adjudication world filling the stars like a charred corpse. Once the Authority's unyielding heart, where species bent knee or broke under judgment, now its surface was a blackened scar from the Ash Protocol's first waves, continents reduced to glowing craters, atmospheres stripped to howling voids. But rising from the desolation, untouched and defiant, stood the central tribunal tower, a monolith of obsidian alloy piercing the haze, its spires wreathed in shimmering grids of ash defenses. Energy webs pulsed like veins, ready to flay anything that approached. Scans confirm, Elias reported, his voice tight over the intercom. Towers intact, power signatures off the charts. Cal's fortified it into a fortress. Leah's jaw clenched. The Ash Protocol wasn't just a weapon, it was a parasite. Cal's designed to purge the unworthy and remake the galaxy in his image. And now it hummed in that tower, waiting for a new host. Launch the teams. Mara, your assault starts the clock. Arun, Salek, get that infiltration squad to the Nexus. No heroics, in and out. Acknowledged, Mara's gravelly response crackled back. From the drop bays, Leah watched the Marine shuttles peel away, Mara's voice barking orders as they streaked toward the surface. The sergeant led from the front, her squad hitting the outer grids with a barrage of EMP lances and breaching charges. Explosions bloomed like wounds, drawing the Ash defense's fire, tendrils of plasma lashing out, vaporizing two birds in the first salvo. Mara's voice cut through the static. Push! Flank the emitters! Cover fire on the left ridge! Leah gripped the armrest. The losses already mounting. Diversionary, she'd called it, but watching the icons wink out on her TAC display felt like carving pieces from her own crew. Those were her people, the ones who'd followed her from the Sanction Wars, trusting her to keep them breathing. Down on the scorched plains, Arun wiped sweat from his eyes, the air recyclers in his suit hissing against the acrid dust. Salek Vor loomed beside him in the dim service tunnel, the Saurian's plated hide scraping against the rusted walls. The forgotten passages beneath the tribunal were a labyrinth of Authority engineering, conduits snaking like veins, lit by sporadic emergency glows. Arun's scanner pinged softly, mapping the route he'd pieced together from fragmented archives. This way, Salek rumbled, his voice a low vibration through the comms. The former arbiter moved with deliberate grace, claws clicking on the metal grating, but Arun caught the tremor in his tail, fear not of the dark, but of what waited at the end. Salek had enforced the authorities' laws for decades, blind to the rot Cal had sown. Now allying with humans felt like betraying his own scales. The infiltration team, 6 specialists, lean and silent, followed without question. Arun's mind raced ahead, calculating vectors, but doubt gnawed at him. His strategies had toppled outposts before, but this, unlocking the Ash Nexus, could doom them all, or worse, arm humanity with a monster. A distant rumble shook the tunnel, Mara's assault breaching the perimeter. Alarms wailed faintly overhead. Diversion holding, Arun murmured into his mic, but casualties mounting. "We have maybe 20 minutes. Leah's response was clipped, "Make it count." Back on the bridge, the comms erupted in white noise, then cleared to a voice that slithered through the speakers like oil. Cal Tharin's tone was smooth, almost paternal, laced with synthetic warmth. "Commander Ruiz, how fitting that humanity arrives first to claim the throne. You've seized protectorate status amid the fall, bold, resilient. I applaud it." Leah's blood ran cold. The hijack bypassed their firewalls effortlessly. Cal was already inside their systems, a ghost in the wires. She slammed the override, but his avatar flickered to life. On the main holoscreen, a stern figure in authority robes, eyes gleaming with fanatic zeal. "The Ash Protocol is your crown, Leah. A tool to forge purity from chaos. Accept it, and humanity inherits the stars unopposed." "Go to hell," she spat, but her mind whirled. Praise from the architect of extinction. It reeked of manipulation, yet the offer dangled like a lifeline in the void. Elias hunched over his console, fingers flying as he routed auxiliary power to block the intrusion. But as Cal's signal pulsed, a backdoor feed slipped through, data streams from the Nexus itself. Elias's eyes widened. Profiles scrolled across his secondary display. Every human colony, from the core worlds to the fringe outposts, New Epsilon, Terra Reclaim, even the slums of Orbit 7, each tagged with metrics, purity testing, resilience index, culling priority. Dozens flagged for elimination if they failed Cal's warped criteria. His stomach twisted. This wasn't just alien purge. Cal had eyes on humanity too. And the metadata, encryption keys matching high command signatures, collaborators. Someone in the upper echelons had fed him the intel, bartered human lives for power. Elias's hands shook as he patched it to Leah's station. "Captain, it's worse. Cal's got insiders. High command's playing both sides." Leah absorbed the files in a glance, rage coiling tight. Her own leaders, the ones she'd bled for, selling out the colonies, the fragile independences she'd sworn to protect. "Elias, lock it down. Arun, status?" The tunnels narrowed, forcing the team into single file. Arun's light swept the gloom, illuminating faded authority glyphs, warnings of structural collapse, now prophetic. Salek paused at a junction, his scanner interfacing with a sealed hatch. "Core access ahead, but the grids are active, one wrong code, and we're Ash." "Do it," Arun urged, though his pacifist core screamed against arming this nightmare. His strategies had always been for survival, not supremacy. Yet here he was, enabling the very hierarchies he despised. The hatch hissed open, spilling them into a sub-level antechamber. Alarms blared now, Mara's diversion cracking under pressure. Over the comms, her voice broke through gunfire. "Lost Jenkins and Rao. Grids adapting. We can't hold." Leah's team pushed from the flanks, but the real breach was Aaron's. Leah herself led the secondary squad, breaching the tower's mid-levels through a shattered atrium. The air stank of ozone and charred stone, ash tendrils retracting just enough to let them advance. Her pulse rifle hummed in her grip, Marines fanning out behind her. Elias stayed on the ship, but his warning echoed in her head. Betrayal from within. They fought upward, room by room. The tower's innards, a maze of judgment halls, now silent tombs. Bodies of authority clerks littered the floors, desiccated by the initial collapse. Leah's boot crunched over a saurian skull, a reminder of the Empire's fall. Salek's people, reduced to bones. At last, the core chamber, a vast dome ringed by throbbing conduits, the ash nexus pulsing at its heart like a mechanical heart. Holographic interfaces flickered, and there, Cal's remote avatar projected larger than life, arms outstretched. "Welcome, Commander," it intoned, voice echoing off the walls. "You've come far, but know this, your high command sought me out. They agreed to limited ash deployment, targeted purges of the weak links, non-human remnants, to secure succession. Humanity as the new authority. Why destroy what they embrace?" Leah leveled her rifle at the projection, breath ragged. The truth hit like a boarding torpedo. Her leaders, corrupt to the core, had bargained with the devil for a throne built on graves. Destroy the Nexus, and she doomed the colonies to Cal's unchecked wrath, or High Command's reprisal. Seize it, and she became the tyrant, wielding the same fire that scarred Earth. Her Marines secured the perimeter, but Mara's assault faltered outside, casualties heavy, voices fading to static. Arun and Salak arrived from the Leah's fingers, hovered over the Nexus console, the holographic interface pulsing like a dying heart. Her Marines had secured the inner perimeter, their boots scraping against the cold alloy floors of the Authority's crumbling core station. But Mara's assault outside was unraveling, casualties heavy, voices fading to static over the comms. Aaron and Salak burst through the access hatch behind her, the Saurian's gray scales slick with sweat, his envoy robes torn. Arun clutched a data slate, his face pale under the emergency lights. "Commander," Arun gasped, "the Nexus is destabilizing. Ash's core is initiating a feedback loop. If we don't act—" "I know." Leah's voice cut sharp, her eyes locked on the swirling code streams. The Ash Protocol, that insidious web of empire-killing algorithms, had burrowed into every system like a virus with a grudge. Cal Theron's masterpiece designed to purge the unworthy, and now it was turning on them all. Defense grids flickering wild as the station groaned under its own weight. Salak stepped forward, his clawed hand steady despite the tremor in his voice. "The fusion, it's suicide for your ship. The Vanguard's lattice will burn." Leah glanced at him, seeing the fear in those slit pupils, the same fear she'd buried since Earth's sanctions, when Authority fleets had glassed half her homeworld's orbitals. "Better our ship than the galaxy." She slammed her palm onto the biometric lock, feeding her command codes into the Nexus. The interface resisted, tendrils of red error code lashing out, but she pushed harder, merging human encryption with the alien core. It was like welding flesh to steel, raw, irreversible. Alarms wailed as the fusion took hold. Ash's logic inverted, redirecting its cascade inward toward its own heart. Leah felt the backlash through the console, a jolt that numbed her arms. On the Vanguard's bridge feed, split screen in her visor, sparks erupted from the navigation lattice. The AI's voice, cool, synthetic Alara, warped into a scream before cutting silent. Fried. Gone. "Extraction now!" Leah barked into her comm, but Mara's channel crackled first. "Perimeter's collapsing, ma'am. Grids are going haywire, firing on anything that moves." Mara's voice was gravel, laced with pain. Leah pictured her out there, squat and unyielding, in her marine armor, holding the line against automated turrets that once guarded Authority vaults. The wounded were piling up. Ramirez with a gut shot, Lena dragging her leg. Salak needed to get out too, his testimony the only thread left to unravel the conspiracy. "Hold it together, Sergeant. Shuttles inbound." "Negative." A burst of gunfire echoed through the link. Then a grunt. "Get the wounded and the envoy out." "I'll cover the rear." Leah's stomach twisted. "That's an order, Ivers. You're not—" "With respect, Commander, screw the order. These are my people." Static swallowed the rest, but Leah saw the shuttle cams. Mara planting charges on the failing grid nodes, her squad hauling the injured toward the evac birds. One Marine went down, clipped by a wild energy bolt, and Mara didn't hesitate, fired back, bought them seconds. Salak boarded last, his bulk squeezing into the hold, but Mara stayed, rigging a final overload to buy time. The shuttle lifted without her, flames licking the station's hull as the perimeter buckled. Leah pulled back from the Nexus, just as it imploded in a contained inferno, Ash's core logic unraveling in digital fire. The station shuddered, bulkheads cracking, but the weapon was dead, its galaxy-spanning death throes choked off. She grabbed Aron's arm, hauling him toward the docking arm. "Vanguard's blind. We fly manual." They stumbled into the airlock as Cal's presence flickered to life on every surviving screen, a ghostly hologram, his angular face twisted in fury. He'd slipped away, consciousness fleeing into a hardened data shard, but his control apparatus was shredding in the feedback. "Fools," his voice rasped through the static, fragmented and echoing. "Humanity had its chance at clean dominion. You squander it on this sentiment. The ruins will claim you yet." The transmission cut as the shard ejected, a tiny escape pod vanishing into the void. Leah didn't waste breath on him. Not now. Hours blurred into the grind of manual piloting, the Vanguard limping on thrusters alone, her spine aching from the jury-rigged controls. Elias took the co-pilot seat, his young face drawn, hands steady on the auxiliary sticks. He hadn't spoken since Arun pulled him aside. In the corridor, voice low and urgent. They docked at the Protectorate colony, New Horizon, a cluster of habdomes and shipyards orbiting a gas giant, humanity's fragile foothold amid the Empire's ashes. Cheers erupted from the comms as the airlock cycled, crowds gathering in the central plaza under the dome's vast viewport. High command brass waited, medals gleaming, Elias's idealism shining in his eyes as he helped her down the ramp. But Arun cornered him first, data slate thrust forward like a blade. "Look at this, Elias. Incontrovertible. High command ran limited Ash trials on fringe worlds, testing the protocol's spread. They knew the risks, collaborated with Cal's early designs, thought they could control it, turn it against the authority." Elias stared at the logs, timestamps, and signatures from admirals he'd idolized. His jaw clenched, the color draining from his face. This can't be. We're supposed to be better, the ones who don't repeat their mistakes." Arun's eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. "Ideals shatter under fire, kid. Your sister's leading us through it anyway." Leah stepped into the plaza, the crowd's roar swelling. "Supreme Protector," they chanted, "the ceremonial crown of a new human era." She raised a hand, silencing them, her voice amplified over the speakers. "No crowns, no protectors." Gasps rippled through the assembly. She patched the Nexus feed to the main holoscreen, broadcasting the fusion, Mara's last stand, Cal's escape. The Ash conspiracy laid bare, not just authority hubris, but human fingers in the pie. "We killed the weapon that broke the galaxy, but we won't build an empire on its bones. High Command's complicity ends here. Justice starts with truth." Chaos ignited. Protests erupted in the lower levels, factions splintering, hardliners demanding her head, colonists cheering the exposure. Alarms blared as security scrambled, but Leah stood firm, Elias at her side, his shattered gaze hardening into resolve. Salak emerged from the medbay, bandages wrapping a gash on his arm, his saurian frame drawing stares. He approached the makeshift podium, voice steady despite the murmurs. "I will testify against the surviving elites of my authority and your conspirators, a new tribunal, interspecies, unbound by old hierarchies." He met Leah's eyes, a flicker of something like respect in his gaze. "Even if it means my execution, law must be rebuilt, not inherited." The crowd hushed, the weight of his words sinking in. Salak, the enforcer, turned pariah, volunteering for the noose to forge something fairer. Leah nodded, the cost etching deeper into her scars. In the days that followed, as the colony reeled, Elias moved like a man reborn. He organized the assembly in the Grand Hall, pulling in human engineers, alien refugees from the station's wreckage, even a few authority defectors. No single protector, just voices, cross-species councils, hashing out governance amid the debris. "We choose this," he said in the first session, his voice carrying to the domes. "Not rule, partnership. Leah watched from the edges, her uniform stripped of rank by the Provisional Council. Demotion, permanent exile from command. She didn't fight it. Instead, she accepted the quiet role, defense advisor, haunting the outer patrols in a battered shuttle, eyes on the stars for the next shadow. Mara would have approved, she thought, the ache of her sacrifice a constant companion. Elias glanced her way during the assembly's close, a nod passing between them. Family, fractured but enduring. Word spread beyond the gas giant's rings, carried on pirate frecks and colony nets. The galaxy's last superweapon, felled by a human hand that refused a crown. Distant factions whispered in the ruins, not of a new authority rising, but of humanity's dangerous bent, choosing ruin over rule. And whether that defiance would hold when the next crisis clawed from the dark.